U.S. Air Force Sergeant J.J. Kinney, callsign Playboy, learns he is part of a Delta Force operation as the team's JTAC. In the air, he is joined by Sergeant Abel, Sergeant Bishop, and Master Sergeant Sweet, and learns they will be rescuing a CIA asset who was captured in the Philippines gathering intel on Alexander Petrov, a former KGB-turned-arms dealer. Meanwhile, at the Air Force Base in Las Vegas, we meet Air Force Captain Eddie Grimm and Staff Sergeant Nia Branson, who will be providing air support on the operation. Grimm's wife is about to give birth, and since he will be on the op, he asks the Air Force soldiers, who are all hanging around watching TV, to listen out for the call since he will be busy, but he has no hopes they will even care enough to come get him. In the chopper, Kinney can't find the box of Fruit Loops he brought for the flight, and the others mock him until Abel gives him a chocolate bar.
Box of Fruit Loops, I don't know what I did with it. Is this kid for real?
With 6 minutes to the drop zone, everyone prepares themselves. They learn Kinney is just 27, and this is his first mission with operators, so Bishop warns him to keep up as they won't have time to save his ass. Abel reminds him to breathe on the jump and to pull his chute, but Sweet thinks he'll be just fine. They get to the drop zone, and all jump out of the chopper, piercing through the night sky. Kinney is having a problem with his chute. He starts hyperventilating, but eventually manages to get it open. They recover on a beach, and decide to head to a nearby ridge. Grimm and Branson then take their position behind the controls of a Reaper drone, which soon starts heading to the team's location, and gets their coordinates from Kinney. The team starts making their way toward their target through the forest. Kinney reveals he was a last-minute pick for the op as he missed his flight out due to stomach issues, so Abel hopes he won't be shitting himself on the mission. Kinney is still confused as to why he is here as he is not Tier 1 personnel, but they explain that the urgency of the op called for the first JTAC available, and tell him it's his chance to step up his game. 3 kilometers from their target, Abel starts complaining about a pain in his leg, an injury he received from an IED. Bishop thinks tech has taken away the human element of war, but Kinney thinks tech saves lives and makes war less barbaric. Bishop thinks that's just lipstick on a pig, as dropping bombs from a distance isn't better than shooting someone point blank. The tension intensifies as they get closer to their target, and Abel spots some movement in the distance. Everyone trains their gun in the direction, and Kinney radios to Grimm to check out the location ahead of them. Grimm picks up some hostiles ahead of them, which Kinney can see on his device, but the Reaper has a system malfunction forcing Grimm to recall it to base. It comes down to the team to clear the ridge ahead of them the old-fashioned way, so Abel takes point. The team cautiously presses on, guns at the ready, and Abel picks up more movement.
Air support. Hornets on standby, 30 mics out. Looks clear.
The team tenses and waits for contact, but it just turns out to be a wild pig. They soon arrive at Petrov's compound, which is crawling with armed mercenaries. The team pushes closer to the compound and clears a shed. Once the coast is clear, Kinney takes up position on a nearby structure with a good view into the compound, while the others take up positions nearby.
Alright, this sure looks like our guy.
Shig.
They soon get eyes on Petrov along with his family. A while later, the team picks up a 2-vehicle convoy filled with armed men, heading to the compound, and suspects they are Abu Sayyaf, an Islamic State terrorist group. They soon identify Shahid Hashimi, the leader of Abu Sayyaf, coming to greet Petrov, suspecting he is here to buy weapons. The Reaper is still down, but they have a Hornet on standby, so Sweet tells them to keep their eyes open. Soon the Reaper is back in operation, so Kinney gives Grimm their new coordinates, and he confirms their target location. The team watches as Shahid greets Petrov and his wife, but suddenly Shahid shoots Petrov and kills his soldiers. Shahid then forces Petrov to watch as he decapitates his wife. The entire team is shocked at what they just witnessed, but when they see a man dragging Petrov's son over, Abel refuses to just sit and watch them take out a kid. Kinney calls in a Hellfire strike as a diversion, but the missile is 30 seconds out. The men are going to strike before that, so Abel shoots Shahid, causing chaos before the missile hits. Kinney then hears movement below him, and it turns out he is laying on top of the entrance to a hideout. 3 men walk out, but the team is on them, and just as one man spots Kinney, the team drops all 3 at once. Kinney then barely avoids a grenade blast that takes out the structure he is on. Their positions have been found out, and hostiles engage them in a shootout.
50 meters.
During the gunfight, Abel is hit multiple times. Sweet calls for Kinney to lay down cover fire for him, but Kinney is still dazed from the grenade blast, trying to find his gun. Hostile reinforcements turn up with an RPG, sending the team diving for cover. Abel is down to his pistol, but Kinney finally shows up to cover him. Kinney tries to keep him awake, but Abel soon dies. Kinney radios for help, but Sweet needs to get rid of the RPG, reminding Kinney to stay focused. Sweet and Bishop then begin dropping the incoming stream of Abu Sayyaf hostiles. Kinney radios to Grim, giving him the RPG's location. The missile is 20 seconds away, but the hostiles manage to fire one more rocket that hits Sweet's and Bishop's location before they are destroyed. Kinney tries evading the incoming gunfire, but a blast sends him over a cliff. He recovers and takes cover within a thicket of trees. He radios to Grim, who asks for a team status, but he reports they are all killed in action. He needs to get to the evac point, so Grim scans ahead of him to ensure the coast is clear. Kinney's legs refuse to move, and he starts freaking out, so Grim reassures him that the choppers are on their way to get him. Kinney drags himself to his feet and continues pushing through the thick jungle. He soon comes upon a road and hears truck engines, but to make things worse, Grim confirms he has hostiles converging on his location from both east and west. Kinney sprints and takes cover underneath the tree roots on the bank of a river. The truck unfortunately comes to a stop a few meters away from him. Then some armed men on horseback also turn up with a dog. The dog comes directly over to Kinney and starts barking, causing one of the men to come check things out. The man comes very close, but the dog soon runs away, allowing Kinney to breathe. The men soon leave the area, and Grim advises him he is now clear to continue moving towards the extraction point. Grim starts to talk to him, finding out they come from the same state and that Kinney recently buried his father, something he is still shaken up about. They continue chatting until late evening, when Kinney gets close to the extraction point. His chopper is only 3 minutes out, and Grim advises him that the path is clear ahead. The Reaper will now return to base, so Grim and Kinney hope they can meet and talk once he returns to safety. Soon the chopper comes into view and Kinney starts moving towards it as it lands, when he is suddenly shot, fortunately in the plates. The retreating Reaper then picks up multiple hostiles surrounding the LZ, all aiming for the chopper. The gunner returns fire, but a near RPG miss forces them to retreat under heavy gunfire, leaving Kinney behind. More hostiles show up, all gunning for Kinney, who starts sprinting for cover and returning fire. Grim fires a Hellfire missile, which soon decimates 2 truckloads of men, but more trucks begin to show up. The men are somehow able to pinpoint Kinney's location, and Grim realizes his strobe is giving him away. The Reaper is out of ammo, but the Hornet has arrived and hits a truck with a missile, destroying it. The trouble is not over, as it seems the entire Abu Sayyaf army has arrived and begins gunning for Kinney. He radios to the Hornet to fire on his location, but the pilot is hesitant as he could hit Kinney. Despite this, Kinney orders him to open fire, barely avoiding the gunfire and explosions. The Hornet has to return to base, but Grim stays behind to provide surveillance. There is another spot where Kinney could be extracted from, but he would need to climb a very steep hill to get there. Tired and injured, Kinney decides to take on the journey. Kinney wonders why Grim, being so old, is still a captain, but Grim reveals he has 3 ex-wives, 8 kids, and a baby on the way, so he needs the active duty bonuses as a promotion would not allow him that. As they continue to talk about Grim's pilot background, Kinney gets briefly distracted and falls down a small cliff and lands in a river, losing his rifle. He recovers, but Branson soon picks up 3 hostiles heading in his direction. Kinney pulls his pistol and braces for contact, and soon gunfire begins to hit the water around him. He takes off running down the river with the men chasing and shooting, and jumps over a waterfall. He manages to evade the men and get downstream, but another soon holds him at gunpoint. Grim radios for the colonel, telling him about the situation and requesting to stay on overwatch until Kinney gets to safety, and the colonel gives them permission. Kinney is being held captive inside an Abu Sayyaf base. Sweet suddenly shows up and takes out the guards. He gets to Kinney, revealing that Bishop was captured and wants to go back and rescue him. He urges Kinney to get his head in the game, and they arm themselves with AKs. The two push back through the forest. Kinney creates a makeshift antenna, then climbs up a small cliff face to get reception. He gets through to Grim, reporting they are headed back to the initial mission location, but Grim reveals the asset they sent in to rescue has already been found. A QRF is being assembled to get to them, but Kinney insists they need to save Bishop and requests planes on standby. The comms then drop before Grim can get his exact location. Sweet and Kinney get back to Petrov's compound. Bishop's exact location isn't known, so Sweet plans to use the bombs as a diversion, then clear the entire compound. Kinney suggests they could drop 3 bombs 15 minutes apart, moving in on the first strike and wiping them out on the last. Kinney gets back in contact with Grim, who has a B-1 in the air. They go through the plan together, but Kinney's radio battery dies, causing the comms to fail before they can confirm. The colonel wants Grim and Branson to take leave since they've exceeded their duty, and though Grim initially refuses to leave Kinney and Sweet without surveillance, the colonel pulls rank on them both and orders them out of their chairs. Kinney and Sweet push closer to the compound. Sweet urges Kinney to stay focused and call out every contact he spots, and that today he is Tier 1 status. 12 minutes to the first strike, they clear the first tent, killing the lone man sitting there. They enter a building where 2 men are distracted watching television, so Sweet switches to his blade. He takes out the first man, but the second puts up a fight. Kinney is then tackled by another, and the 2 are forced to fight, but manage to kill them. They soon come under rapid gunfire, but their attacker's gun jams and they take him out. Outside they gun down 2 other men with precision before pushing on to the next building. More hostiles open fire, but this time Sweet is hit. Kinney pulls him to safety, but is tackled again. During the fight, the hostile gets his hands on his gun, but before he can kill Kinney, Sweet shoots him. Not even a second after, a grenade lands on their position and explodes. Both men are captured by Abu Sayyaf, beaten and thrown into cages alongside Bishop, who is barely still alive. Kinney calls out to the hostiles, trying to explain that bombs will fall soon, but they don't understand a word. Meanwhile, the B-1 bomber is closing in. Sweet doesn't think he can hold out much longer with his injury, and urges Kinney to find a way to save himself and Bishop. The Abu Sayyaf men then bring out a video camera and drag Sweet from his cage. Shahid then enters the room, pulls his gun, and executes Sweet on camera. They then drag Kinney from his cage. They take him to another room and kick him around before sitting him at a table. Shahid then talks to him in English, telling him about the history of the caves while going through his torture weapons. He sets down a hammer and a machete, telling Kinney he was having a great day until they came and rained on his parade. Kinney again tells him about the bombs, but Shahid doesn't care. He then strikes Kinney across the face with the hammer, knocking out teeth. He demands the location of the other commandos while his men dunk Kinney's face in water.
Where are the other commandos located?
But Kinney tells him it's just them. Shahid doesn't believe him, telling him he will die here, and his men start to drown him. As Kinney begins to lose consciousness, the first bomb lands, sending a burst of flame rocketing through the caves, decimating everyone. Kinney survives the inferno, struggling to gather his bearings. He then grabs a machete and starts making his way through the caves, seeing men dying around him. He hears some banging and goes to see a captured man there who confirms that he is the CIA operative they were sent to rescue. Kinney helps the man walk, but hears laughing. It is a gravely injured Shahid, and Kinney walks up to him and impales him with the machete before beating his face in with a rock. Bishop has also survived the blast, and the 3 men hurry to find a way out before the next blast hits. Kinney is trying to get a signal with Shahid's satellite phone as the bomber races in to deliver its next payload. He gets a signal and calls the base lobby where the men are engrossed in a football game. One man answers, but he is too distracted and soon hangs up on Kinney. He then calls Grim directly, but he is talking to his wife and ignores the call. Grim so happens to listen to the voicemail and hears Kinney telling him to abort the last strike. In his car, he tries calling the base lobby once more, but they are ignoring the phone. Meanwhile, Kinney returns to Bishop and the asset, trying to get them out of there before they are blasted to hell. Grim gets back to the office, running through the halls yelling for them to abort the strike. Kinney manages to get outside in time to see the incoming bomber, but Grim gets to the control room and orders the bomber to abort just in time. Kinney breathes a sigh of relief, waving to the unseen drone overhead. Grim then marches into the lobby with a golf club, telling them they just almost killed an operator in the field before smashing the television. Kinney, Bishop, and the asset are recovered, and Bishop looks at Kinney with much respect as they head home. Thanks for watching. If you had a good time, go ahead and hit that like button, drop a comment, and of course, subscribe for more recaps just like this. And hey, don't click away just yet. YouTube thinks you'll love one of these 2 videos popping up right here, so check them out next.